Do leadership differently. This is a research project for my work with my clients. It's about leadership innovation, and it focuses on high performers in a highly intense environment, the kind of leaders who know how to perform at peak performance, take care of their own well-being, but are also strong creative problem solvers. I coach people who are strong creative problem solvers in various fields. They work in highly intense environments and they know how to perform at a peak level. And some of them are missing something because we can't see our own selves. Different is better than better. Deconstructing the best leaders in various industries can be of tremendous value to anyone who's seeking to be a better leader themselves. In this episode, I had the privilege of interviewing Veetahl Eilat-Reichel, who is the CEO and co-founder of Sorbet. She was born in the United States, but grew up predominantly in Israel. Veetahl started her career in consumer products at L'Oreal, where she worked as a product manager. She later transitioned into financial services, which is where she remains till today. This journey started in wealth management in the private banking sector, both in Israel and in Switzerland. She holds an MBA from Kellogg School of Management. Later, she joined Bank Hapoalim, the largest bank in Israel, filling vital positions, ending with leading the marketing of the retail division, which is the entire B2C arm of the bank. If that's not enough, she then joined Lockheed Martin and ran their marketing and business development in Israel for a couple of years. Upon returning to Hapoalim Group, Veetahl led the marketing for Yisrocard, the largest credit card company in Israel, until their IPO. Today, she is the CEO and co-founder of Sorbet, a young startup that optimizes employees' time off, a win-win for both employers and employees. Listen to Veetahl explain this better. Veetahl has turned her passion and impossible vision of empowering people with the agency to maximize the value of their time into a successful startup. Enter Veetahl Eilat-Reichel. Enjoy.
Hello.
Hey, Veetahl.
How are you?
Good, thank God. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Sorbet is a startup. We're fairly early. We've been around for a little over a year now. What we do is we optimize time off. So we enable people to either take their paid time off in a more efficient way, in a way that optimizes their time without disrupting their work. And at the same time, if we identify accrued time off balances that are unconsumable because they don't fit personal preferences and time consumption habits and time constraints that the company has, we then offer to buy off this liability from the employee, because as you probably know, for most companies who accrue time off that is accrued is essentially a liability from the employer to the employee. It's highly inoptimized in a way that causes, on the one hand, liabilities on the balance sheet of the company, and on the other hand, it's illiquid. It's an illiquid asset that's held by the employee. Excuse me. So basically, this is an asset that is owed to the employee, but they don't have access to it. They can't really liquidate it until they ultimately leave the company, and this is something that obviously could happen at some point in the future, unknown. It could be in 2 years, and 3 years, 8 years, or 10 years, or whatever that is. Only then will they be able to access this amount of money that is actually owed to them. And so this market failure around unusable accrued time is where our real innovation comes into play, where we actually buy off this liability, very similar to an invoice factoring solution, if you're familiar with that, that solution. So invoice factoring is something that has been around for many, many years. There are third parties who approach businesses and buy off invoices from them. An invoice is some form of a contract saying I provided services or I provided goods, and you are then, you're supposed to pay me at some point in the future. And people in need of cash flow will often sell this invoice to a third party at a certain discount, and then the party that's owed will then transfer this liability to that third party. The customer will then pay that third party instead of paying the person providing the goods or services. So very, very similarly, we took that same construct and basically we're approaching employers. Once they approve that we provide the services to their employees, we then allow employees to sell us off this liability. So we essentially cash those accrued days immediately, allow them to enjoy this time reinvested in their wellness. So we actually offer employees lots of activities and experiences to do with their time off, reinvested in their well-being, travel, leisure, hospitality, and so on. While the employer then, instead of owing the employee, owes Sorbet, and we offer them lots of value in the ability to control, the flexibility to refinance, and lots of other really great things that we provide. So lots of value at both ends of the value chain. And
Amazing.
what we do.
This was your idea?
Yes, it was.
Wow. Pretty amazing.
Thank you so much.
That's absolutely amazing. Okay, so let's segue into the questions. What is the hardest thing in business or in life that you have overcome? And what did you learn from that experience?
What is the hardest thing in business or in life? I think that when you are an overachiever or someone who wants to excel at everything that you do, there is a point in your life where you realize that you will never be able to do everything really, really, really well or perfectly. And that you actually, instead of doing this one thing really, really, really well, you have to do a bunch of things in various levels of excellence. And very often you actually have to come to terms with the fact that there are certain things that you will have to do okay, and that's fine. And there are certain things that you have to do rather mediocrely, and that's also okay. And then ever so often you will get the privilege of doing something really, really, really well.
So that is something you overcame your tendency to do things only in an excellent fashion, and managed to live into this new realization that not everything has
the expectation of doing everything really, really well, and actually the maturity of understanding that that's not necessary, that it's actually okay, and sometimes even better to recognize and realize when is it fine to just do something fine, and then prioritize other things that you need to do really, really well.
Perfect. Now, if you were to look back 3 years from now and say, they have been the best 3 years of my life,
Okay.
what has to have happened for you to feel thrilled with your progress?
I think I think I'm kind of weird in that, very often people ask me, like, for example, in my journey as an entrepreneur, so oftentimes people ask me, so are you having fun? And I think that I don't look for that. I think that one of the things that actually that probably brings me to a point of satisfaction is when I'm out of my comfort zone. So I think that there are a lot of people who look to remain and stay in a certain place of comfort, but then I personally actively extract myself from places of comfort and actually try to actively seek out that friction of being out of your comfort zone and constantly challenging yourself. So my answer when people ask me, are you having fun, is for the most part, no. And I guess that's kind of, what, I'm looking for, and what is where, so to answer your question, I think that looking back, I would probably ideally want to find that I constantly pushed myself beyond places of comfort and constantly wanted to be in a place of actual friction that makes me better or makes me grow or allows me to accomplish things that I wouldn't normally accomplish.
Beautiful. This is actually a very common thing amongst peak performers or high achievers, because we realize that desire is right behind fear. Fear is a mask for desire. So the way my coach likes to describe it is, whenever he's excited, whenever he wants to do something new and start a new project, the compass he uses is he looks for what scares him and what excites him, and the thread somewhere right in between those two, that's where he aims.
Yeah. I don't think that I often experience fear per se. And there is a rush of excitement in doing something new, which
Mm,
I think also is inherent to a person who, willingly goes on this journey. But yes, the level of frustration or something that um, there's a constant friction to this existence that I think you have to like in a really messed up way, if you're doing this.
I totally understand what you're saying. And that's one of the distinctions and differentiators between people who have this entrepreneurial bug and everyone
Yeah,
else.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, next question. What were the three tiniest shifts that made the biggest difference in those 3 years? Right? We're talking,
Hmm. I don't know. I think it's always that spectrum of, you know, well, obviously, if I'm looking 3 years ahead, I'm looking at some sort of growth,
Mhm.
not necessarily personally, but it's obviously a byproduct of that. But growth in the sense of the company and
Yeah.
the challenges and the scale. And so I would probably it would probably have something to do with surrounding myself and constantly hiring really really amazing people and then correspondingly letting go slightly of certain things that I'm currently in control of. So that's kind of
Mm,
probably one of the things. But gosh, I don't know. Three is difficult. I don't have a really great answer for
okay.
that.
What you gave now is actually also quite common. People in leadership positions, they don't need anyone else. They could do everything, right? And then they realize that, you know what, maybe we really can't. But letting go of some of the responsibilities is difficult. And the answer to that, one of the answers to that, is to hire overlings and not underlings.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I don't necessarily have the desire to do everything, but it is about letting go of certain aspects of agency and control. And I
Yeah.
think that yeah, that's kind of probably a big part of this journey, looking forward.
Now, what's one truth that you held back that you know the world needs to hear?
Ooh, but that's a really long conversation. I think that as a culture, we have this really, really warped concept of a successful person and what they're supposed to look like. Um, Kind of has something to do with what Sorbet does, because one of the things that came up very strongly in our research is that the fact that people don't take time off has to do with kind of the way that our culture perceives a very successful person, which obviously is someone who's very very busy and constantly always on and doesn't take vacation at all. And so people are afraid about the perception of what taking care of yourself or taking little breaks would mean, and how it would reflect of
Mm,
you as a professional. But to me personally, I see this a lot, in the way that we perceive success and the way that we perceived managers, and it also kind of in a way, and that's what I'm saying, it's a really very heavy topic, but I think that in a way we have this very distinct alpha male persona when we think of a very successful person. And very often when when people talk about their success, prices that to pay in order to facilitate that success, and it has very often a lot to do with work-life balance and the prices that people around them had to pay in order to bring a person to be successful. And we kind of
mm,
have this tolerance towards certain people saying, well, and that's the kind of corresponds with my first answer to your first question, is that there are certain people out there have a privilege to be really, really good at one thing and then be really, really bad at everything else. And there are certain people that don't have that privilege. And let's leave it there because I think you know where I'm heading with this, but it's a very, very heavy and
Well,
very.
our society doesn't tolerate certain addictions, right? We don't tolerate drug addiction, alcohol, but we not only tolerate, but we push for work addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
for
that
sure.
has to change.
Yeah, it has to change for many reasons. And I think that one of the things when we talk about diversity and we talk about the ability to be more inclusive in the different types of people that we want to see, in leadership positions, it also has something to do with this idea of what a manager looks like and the prices that everyone around this person has to pay in order to facilitate that success. And I don't believe that there's one way to do it or to go about it. And I think that once we change that perception is when we will be more comfortable in allowing different types of managers and different types of people to enter these positions.
Right. Beautiful. How much more time do we have?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. We're going to do this quickly.
Sure.
Okay. I'll ask you one more question. What would you like to accomplish that may look impossible right now, but if it were achieved, would change everything?
I think that what we're doing today, without sounding too kind of woo-woo, is to empower people with the agency to maximize the value of their time. And I think that there is, again, I have this personal fascination with, the not only the financial value of your time, but the economic value of your time. So very often we don't really kind of invest a lot of thought in the how we really genuinely need and should spend our time in a way that maximizes our utility, but also utility of a lot of people around us. And I feel like we're doing something here that begins to break that paradigm of how we view our time, start to speak in ways that, do put a dollar value on it, but not strictly a financial value on it. And, the way that, my favorite example to that is kind of morbid in a way, but if a person, God forbid, is given, really bad news or they're told, again, God forbid, that they have 3 months to live, then they would be willing to pay any price in the world to gain, another day with their loved ones. And so, and conversely, if a person was told that they will, live forever, then their time would become, completely like not valuable at all, right? So, and I think the beauty of it is that it changes from a person to a person and changes for specific people throughout their lives or throughout the day even. And so the idea to kind of get people to think about it and to spend time in it and optimize it is something that we're trying to play with right now and that I'm actually passionate about.
And that's a huge mission that could impact all employees.
For sure. And people in general.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you very, very much for your time, Veetahl, and for your brilliant insights.